Hello everyone, in this video we are going to discuss about immunity and the types of immunity. So first of all, what is immunity defined as? So it is defined as a defense mechanism of the body, or it is a reaction of the body towards any foreign substance, or it is a non-susceptibility to a given disease or the given organism. Now let us see the classification of immunity. So here we have the two types of immunity, adaptive immunity and the natural, or you can say innate immunity. So in the adaptive immunity, what you can see is that it is a slow response. It is a specific, and here we can create the memory against the organisms. So basically it develops in response to the organism, right? So when we are exposed to organism, then the adaptive immunity is developed, while in case of the natural or innate, it is present by birth, right? So that is why it is the first line of defense, and it has a rapid response, and it does not develop any memory, does not create any memory, and it is non-specific. Now what are the components of the adaptive immunity? So here we have the antibodies, B cells, T cells, or dendritic cells that are playing their role in adaptive immunity, while in case of the natural or innate immunity, we have the different components. We have the complement, we have the white blood cells, for example the macrophages or the neutrophils, natural killer cells. So these are all playing the role in the natural immunity. Now let's discuss the two subtypes of the adaptive immunity, in which we have the active immunity and the passive immunity. Now the word active means that we are actively synthesizing the antibodies against the antigens, right? So in this, what we are introduced to the antigens, and then our body would form the antibodies against it. That is why, as the body takes a long time in order to synthesize the antibodies, that is why it has a slow onset and it is long-term immunity, right? So that is why it provides the protection for the long period of time as compared to the passive immunity. So in the passive immunity, basically we introduce the ready-made antibodies that are already made inside any human or in the animals. So in the form of immunoglobulins from the human and the antiserum from the animals, these antibodies, these preformed antibodies, are introduced in our body, and that is what is referred to as a passive immunity. And as these antibodies are already synthesized and then they are introduced into our body, that is why this kind of immunity is fast. So it has a fast onset, but it is short term. It provides protection for the short term. So we can say that the active immunity is superior to the passive immunity. How it is superior to the passive immunity? So basically it provides a long lasting protection, and the protection efficacy that is provided by it is 100%. Then it is cheaper, as well as it has the few side reactions. That is why it is superior to the passive immunity. Now let us see the subtypes. So both the active and the passive have the subtypes natural and artificial. So in case of the active, the natural active subtype, basically it is induced when we are exposed to the environment, right? So from the environment, when the pathogens enter our body, it means that in case of the infection by the pathogens, these pathogens and their components, they have the antigen in them, right? When they get entered into our body, the antibodies are synthesized. So when these pathogens enter our body, the antibodies are synthesized by our bodies. The examples include the chickenpox, measles, mumps. So these are all the agents that when they get entered into your body, our body would synthesize the antibodies against them, right? Then we have the artificial active. So in this case, we have the vaccination. Basically, these vaccinations are the live or the killed attenuated vaccines, in which the antibodies are introduced into our body and our body would synthesize the antibodies against them. So the most common example in this case are the tetanus, polio, and the MMR vaccine, which includes the measles, mumps, rubella, right? Then in this case, the passive immunity, again we have the same subtypes, the natural passive and the artificial passive. So in the natural passive, basically the natural means that we are getting these type of immunities from the environment, right? So here we what we are getting this from, so from the mother to the child. So here in this case, it can come from the placenta, or it can come from the first milk, that is colostrum, right? So it contains the pre-built antibodies, the pre-formed antibodies in itself. Then we have the artificial passive, in which the antibodies are introduced into our body from the plasma or serum, and the important examples are the rabies, or when there is the tetanus, or In case of the snake bite, so what we can give is the antivenom. So basically, this artificial passive is given prophylactically when the person has the antigenous body and the person can develop the disease. So in order to prevent the disease, this artificial passive immunity can be given. I hope you learned something from this video. Thanks for watching.